Yeah, this video includes one of the weirdest cards that's ever been revealed in Hearthstone. It's actually the one right here behind me, and definitely going to be the highlight today because this is just another video with a bunch of neutral cards, maybe a couple that look playable, but you know, a lot of neutral cards often means a lot of filler. But let's go ahead and talk about this misplaced Pyromancer because this is actually kind of crazy. This is a 3-mana 4/3 that reads, whenever you shatter a card, deal 2 damage to all enemy minions. Now, shatter is bolded, right? That is a keyword, but that is not a keyword in Hearthstone. That is not from old expansions. That is not from this expansion. We have never seen that keyword. I was trying to think about mechanics that might be in the game right now. I was thinking like, kind of feels like maybe when you like burn a card when your hand is too full, right? But that doesn't really have that shatter feeling either. You know, that sounds like ice or something almost. But so what the heck is shatter, right? Well, it's clearly a troll that's teasing a future expansion because this is a time traveling set. This is the misplaced Pyromancer. It's not supposed to be here. It's misplaced. This belongs in a future set. So this is actually teasing a keyword, which I think is actually really cool. Now, of course, there's an argument that this is just printing a dead card for this expansion. 100% true. Like clearly this is going to be totally dead for right now. But here's the deal, right? It's a neutral common. They're all dead. None of them are ever any good. So the fact that this is, you know, just for a joke, just for a laugh, just for a thematic tease, I'm 100% okay with it. In fact, I think it's actually really clever and inspired and funny and a cool little way to build hype for a future set, because this would just be a throwaway dead card anyway 99% of the time, like, you know, most of the other cards we're going to see in this video. So regarding the card itself, right, we have no idea what shattering is, but you know, you could imagine a few things. It kind of sounds like destroying something that's frozen, for instance. It might be a mechanic where you get to, like, you know, pull a card onto your opponent's deck and it will shatter it and like turn it into something, you know, and you'll get like 2 shards of that card or whatever, right? It's some mechanic like tradable or something, but with the opponent's deck where you put it somewhere, you know, and it triggers a shatter or something. And then, you know, this actually has solid upside. A 3-mana card here that can deal 2 damage to all enemy minions. That's pretty nice, right? Like that's a good little AoE on a stick. A 4/3 is a solid base stat line for a 3-drop, right? So as long as shattering isn't a super expensive sort of thing to do, then yeah, you know, this could be a nice little tempo swing on board, basically, with a solid AoE. You know, is shattering going to cost mana? You know, like tradable costs 1, does shatter cost 1? Does that push this to turn 4? Is shatter only tied to other card effects? You know, do you have cards that say shatter or something, right? Because you know, if you have to play another card that costs 2 or 3, like clearly this gets a lot worse because you start talking about overhead. So, you know, we just really don't know. My instincts right now tell me they're not going to make this a totally busted card, but they might put it on some fringe playability just so we remember it and look back and laugh in 4 months or whatever when the next expansion comes out. So personally, to me, you know, okay card probably at the end of the day if we have to guess, but just really cool flavor, really crazy idea. I think it's super fun. I like stuff like this a lot. So really neat design to see in the reveal season anyway. All right, so moving on to one of the 2 epics we have in this video. This is the Timeless Causality, a 2-mana 3/2 elemental with Battlecry. Reverse the order of your deck, which under normal circumstances doesn't really do anything, right? Because your deck is in random order across enough games. This basically has no effective change. But obviously there are cards that can manipulate the order of your deck in certain ways, putting things on top or putting things on bottom. We don't actually have a lot of that in standard right now. I was looking at standard cards. It's really just a Meadow Strider. Put a Meadow Strider on the bottom of your deck. It costs 1. Like, okay, that's actually pretty sick to draw a 1-mana 6/11 taunt. But, you know, obviously that's like happening past turn 8 or whatever. You're probably not excited to do that necessarily. It doesn't feel like a deck or a win condition. So right now, does the Timeless Causality look great? No, but I will say, like, man, we've had some stuff in the past that could be absolutely insane when it manipulated the bottom of your deck. Remember, the entire Dredge set basically played with the bottom of your deck. If we see any sort of mechanic or effect like this, this card actually could become really, really powerful, because so often, right, it was about putting those crazy powerful things on the bottom of your deck. We also had the Sludge set in Warlock from Badlands or whatever. So there's been some really, really powerful mechanics exploring this bottom of your deck space. If more of those show up at all, like, this card actually has a lot of potential power. Now, of course, it just depends on the power of the stuff you're putting on the bottom of your deck, but that potential exists, and this becomes a really big and really cheap effect for, in essence, only 2 mana. So this one's kind of just a battle between, like, design. You know, we just can't know. Do they design things to exploit this effect? Yes, it becomes a powerful card. If they don't design things to exploit this effect, it's kind of a useless card. So, you know, you start to ask, like, would they even print this at all? They're not planning something, maybe, but, you know, maybe not to. And it might be something that comes, you know, not even this expansion, but could, like, be a, you know, 2 or 3 expansions down the line. We literally just saw a card that doesn't even work right now. So we know that's something they can do both in really soft ways or a really hard way, like in that previous card, a really defined way. So, you know, I do actually think this has some potential, though. I think it's pretty cool. It's just cheap enough and just big enough effect that there could be a hook into this that makes this pretty powerful. Next up is the Circadia Mancer. This is a 3 mana 2/2 with Battlecry. Add a random 8 cost minion to your hand, and then at the start of your turns, reduce its cost by 1. So if you math this out, I think the best use case here would be, like, play this on turn 2. You get an 8 cost in hand. On turn 3, it goes down to 7. On turn 4, it goes down to 6. And then on turn 5, it goes down to 5. And you can play, you know, an 8 mana card on turn 5 for 5. Or, you know, you can wait another 5 turns to get it down to 0. I think, you know, if you get to turn 10, like, yeah, it's 0, but man, it's turn 10. You know, I don't know if that's worth the investment or the wait. You're probably just better off running a more high impact 3-drop. So there is that side of it, right? You know, if you play this on curve, the math is not as good or clean, and, you know, it's even slower. I mean, if you look at the 8-drop pool, by the way, we can just pull this up since we don't have a lot to talk about in this video. You know, it's good stuff sometimes, but there's also things that are hard to use. You know, Califero is hard to use if you don't have the right things for it, right? Gelbin of Tomorrow's garbage. You know, some things are just really situational and weird. Some work independently, but some don't. So ultimately, the result pool here is, like, kind of mediocre a lot of the time, and the timing is really bad a lot of the time, which I think this just looks kind of unplayable for those reasons. I think the price and the timeline on this is just way too much for what you get. Moving on to the Unknown Voyager. This is a new 5-drop for 5. After this survives damage, transform it into a random 7-cost minion, which, by the way, the art here is cool. You can literally see this guy coming out of the time machine, dude. This is cool. Very, you know, time machine vibes. What is that, H.G. Wells? Is that Time Machine? H.G. Wells, The Time Machine? Yep, that's right. Very vibes on the art there, that dude. But anyway, both these cards are so bad, and this one's actually even worse than the other one. If this survives damage, like, yeah, it's definitely possible, but without Rush in particular, like, you're just sitting it out there and hoping it survives damage against the opponent. Like, there's so many ways to deal with this with one fell swoop at only 5 health. Like, come on, dude. There's so much removal. There's so many minions that can just hit this and one tap it. It's just a 4/5. That's insane. And here's the sad thing is, like, if you wanted to buff this to make it more likely to survive, well, you're just transforming away all your buffed stats. So you can't even, like, really invest in buffs. On top of that, there's a lot of bad 7-drops. Like, there's some insane ones. Beached Whale is crazy, right? If you transform into Beached Whale, sure. But, like, Arcwing Pilot? I mean, I guess that's maybe okay with, like, the 3 damage, but not really, right? Like, Taka? Just utter garbage. Just completely useless, right? So, you know, even, like, these little 5/5s, just so bad. You basically, you know, spend 5 on a 5/5 kind of. It's not good. I guess it took a little trade maybe, but you get the idea. Just so many low rolls and bad results and things that are just so situational and hard to use that, yeah, I mean, between the conditionality on this and the terrible result, this is just not a card you care about. So next up is Paltry Flutterwing, a 1 mana 1/1 beast with Death Rattle. Summon a random 2-cost minion that is dormant for 2 turns. So, little bit of a board builder here. You get a 1/1 beast that gives you a random 2-cost that takes forever to summon. This is just the worst card ever, right? Like, I just think it's so bad. Maybe if it was like a 2-cost beast and you could lean into some beast stuff or something, there'd be a cool play there. But my God, it takes forever to summon it, and then it's like you can't even attack when it pops up, right? It still needs another turn to attack. Like, forget it. You've got the craziest delay baked into this that I've ever seen. There is maybe something here with Quest Druid specifically, because Quest Druid wants that full board. So having, you know, a dormant minion on board is a way to potentially advance your quest a little faster in Druid. I'm not convinced that's worth it, though. I'd rather just play better cards and go wider, you know, with just like summon 2 1/1s or something instead, and just, you know, mount that pressure and stuff. So, you know, I can't totally write it off for Quest Druid, but that is literally the only use case, and I think it is an incredibly specific and an incredibly unlikely one to be good. So as far as I'm concerned, this card just looks really, really bad. It's totally unplayable in any other context, I think. Moving on to the Aeon Wizard. This is a 5-mana 3/5 with Rewind. And Battlecry, get 2 random spells from your class. So if you're willing to spend 5 mana on a bit of a value generator here, you got this nice Rewind. If the spells suck, you can reroll and try to get some better spells out of it. Honestly, the spell pool is so big for every class, like, it's still probably going to suck in a lot of cases, you know? It's like, yeah, okay, I got 1 good, 1 bad, and I rewind, and I get another, you know, 1 good, 1 bad, or 2 bad, or 2 low cost. It's just really hard to get any kind of consistent results out of this, because there's just such a wide breadth of spells, and so many of them are so synergistic in a really narrow way that they're not good for a generalized deck. You know, sometimes you just get something that doesn't make any sense for your deck or game plan. And it costs 5 freaking mana for a 3/5, which is just way too much overhead for random value generation like this. We have so many ways to generate cheap value. This is absolutely garbage in comparison. This card is awful. All right, moving on here to the Living Paradox. This is a 3-mana 2/1 with Elusive, and Battlecry, it summons 2 2/1 Living Paradoxes with Elusive. Notably, those are not copies, so this is not like a hand buff type play where you make all of these gigantic. That would actually make this card kind of OP and crazy strong, probably too good. But as it stands, you're just getting 2 1s always off of that Battlecry, which, you know, it is a wide board. It's not crazy to think a token-based deck could try to do something with this. You know, Quest Druid we just talked about for an example. You know, just getting 3 bodies in one. But there's been a lot of ways we've done that in the past. And this one doesn't really stand out to me as one of the better ways to do that, because the Elusive keyword, I don't think actually goes very far on a 2/1. I like Elusive as a keyword on big stuff, right? Because that can sometimes deny like a big single target removal spell or a big high damage spell where they need to hone in on that one thing. But with little 2/1s like this, they just die so freely to like little chip trades on board, 1/1s, rushers, all that stuff, and just wide board AoE. You know, a single consecration just wipes out all of these in one fell swoop. Arcane Missiles style effects still really deal with this really easily. We have a few of those. We talked about like locations yesterday that do that sort of stuff. There's just a lot of ways to deal with this problem when there are only 2/1s. That Elusive just doesn't really feel like it goes far enough as far as I'm concerned on this one. Because like, yeah, okay, you deny a mage ping or whatever, but that's one of the few things you actually would deny. There's so many other ways to solve this problem. So for me, ultimately, I just don't think it's quite good enough to make the cut. It's not terrible. Better than a lot of these cards we've seen today, but still probably not good enough in the scheme of things. That 1 health is a real weakness here. And then our final card is the Yesterlock. It is an old reminiscing Murloc type dude. It is a 2-mana 3/1 Murloc with, at the end of your turn, give your other minions +1 health. So, you know, we've got Murloc Paladins, been a staple deck this past expansion with the quest. This is obviously a card that could go in Murloc Paladin. I actually don't know that it does, though. I think Murloc Paladin's already so good at scaling its stats that this doesn't really feel like much of a value add there. You know, but by the mid game, they're often getting up to 5 or 6 health anyway. I don't think going from like 6 to 7 health is a meaningful breakpoint. I think I'd rather just run early game Murlocs that get me out faster and potentially summon wider boards, right? That actually advance the quest, as opposed to kind of doubling down on something that I already do well. So I don't think this really makes sense in Murloc Pally. I also think Aggro Pally probably doesn't need this. I could almost fit better because they can go wide really fast and have to leverage those early boards in many cases. But they have just better ways to get full-on buffs. You know, they have like the Busy Bot that's giving all their stuff +1/+1, not just +1 health. So, you know, that's aggressive and stabilizing. Now, does the multiple instances of this turn after turn allow you to snowball harder? maybe, but I don't really think so. And this doesn't even give itself the health, so it's like this doesn't really increase its own survivability, so it's actually the easiest thing for the opponent to chip away at, get rid of, and then solve its problem. So I don't really think aggro paladin makes sense for this either. So then do other classes make sense, quest druid, etc.? I don't really think so, man. I just don't think it does enough at the end of the day. I think they're just faster, better ways to cement those early aggressive boards, and outside of that, this doesn't really have a home, so therefore this card looks a little weak. All right, so that's all the cards for today. Let's go ahead and rate these from 1 to 5 stars. Misplaced Pyromancer is a 3-star card. Timeless Causality is a 4-star card. Circadiamancer is a 2-star card. Unknown Voyager is a 1-star card. Paltry Flutterwing is a 2-star card. Aeon Wizard is a 1-star card. Living Paradox is a 2-star card. Yesterlock is a 1-star card. And yeah, folks, there you go. That's the rest of the neutral set. I'll say what I said yesterday. Yes, a lot of bad cards these last 2 days. Yes, it's kind of depressing sometimes, but just keep in mind, these are just the neutral cards. So often there are so many bad neutral cards. This is not atypical. This is not me being like overly negative or whatever. In fact, I gave this 4 stars. I'm taking a bit of a flyer that they're going to print support for this, and I think it could be pretty cool. So, you know, maybe some chance. I'm kind of ranking this one on potential more than like, you know, current. Like right now, this is an easy 1-star card, honestly. I think it's basically a Bloodflint Raptor right now, but you know, potential wise, this does punch a little higher. So you know, just don't be depressed. You look at any given set, you're going to see a million neutrals that are terrible. That's normal. We'll get into some exciting new cards as the class cards start revealing soon, and then, you know, hopefully we find some exciting stuff and some cool new designs and so on. But either way, this Misplaced Pyromancer was certainly a lot of fun. So share your thoughts on all these cards down below. Thanks much as always for watching, and until next time, game on.